Hello there, how is everyone doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel, and today, in no surprise, I want to talk about these crazy new sales numbers for Nintendo, the Switch itself, and so many of their biggest games. That's right, it is that time again where Nintendo has once again given an update on their prior sales for the quarter, and an update on their total sales for the Switch hardware, the Switch Lite hardware, and like I said, all of these huge titles that continue to sell in the millions upon millions. Now, I'm no fool, and I know that you've probably seen several videos from all of your favorite gaming YouTubers who have already talked about these numbers and broken them down, and people tweeting about it like crazy. And I get it. I mean, I'm a couple of days late to this information and this topic, but honestly, my life is pretty busy, and my schedule just worked out that it took me a couple of days to get to it. But I still have some thoughts, and so hopefully you guys will still enjoy hearing me share my own perspective on what's going on and really talk about just how big the Nintendo Switch could possibly get. Before I dive any deeper into the Nintendo Switch sales topic, I do want to let you know that as you watch this video, if you seem to like what I'm doing, and you like what you see in here, then hopefully you will consider subscribing to the channel, help me cross a couple of more milestones. I update and upload several videos every single week talking about all things Nintendo and Metroid specifically, as well as all things gaming. So, like I said, if you like what I'm doing, then subscribe. So where do we even begin, man? There is so much data to go over, and I don't really know if I want to spend too much time going over every single thing and parsing through every single little unit sale for all of these crazy things that they just updated us with. Like I said, really the main purpose of this video is to discuss just how big I think the Nintendo Switch can truly be when all is said and done. And part of the reason why I wanted to do this, and I find it interesting, is because, as you have heard me say, and if you've been following me for years, you even remember when I actually made these statements, I'm someone who never thought the Nintendo Switch would get much bigger than it is right now. And it's pretty obvious that it's only going to keep rolling and keep growing throughout 2021 and most likely through 2022, and maybe even beyond, despite the fact that I have my own theories about the next-gen console releasing in the next 2 or so years. I mean, the Switch will probably still continue to exist and be successful beyond the launch of that, even if my theory is correct. Obviously, the big topic of conversation for a long time has been if the Nintendo Switch can surpass the Nintendo Wii in lifetime sales, with the Wii being Nintendo's most successful home console in terms of unit sales, and one of the top 2 or 3 all-time selling consoles. I mean, really, the Wii was huge, and the Switch seems poised to surpass that. And I really believed at the beginning of the Switch's life that it was doubtful that the Switch would do that. But I really, truly feel like, yeah, it's definitely gonna pass the Wii sometime in the next year or two, which is so insane to think about. Quickly, I think it's worth noting just some of their best game sales that we've seen so far, with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe still being the best-selling title on the Switch, which is crazy because that game already sold 8 million units on the Wii U before it even came out on the Switch. But here we are, and 3.5 years later, the dang thing has sold 33 million units. When you add in the Wii U sales, this game has sold over 40 million units in its entire lifetime. That is astronomical, and obviously there's a lot of people who double-dipped, myself being one of them. I bought it both on the Wii U and on the Switch, so we know a lot of people did that. But I think it's still a massive and monumental achievement, and it just cannot be overstated just how successful Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is. And it's a great game, so I'm glad to see it, and I hope that it bodes well for the future of the franchise. I would love to see a Mario Kart 9 sometime soon. Of course, the other big story is Animal Crossing New Horizons. How the heck did this game manage to sell 31 million units in less than 1 year? It's only been 10 freaking months. And this game has sold 11, almost 11 months. 31 million units. I'm not an Animal Crossing fan, but the success and popularity cannot be denied. And I know that many people will say the pandemic is part of the reason it sold so well. And yeah, I mean, that's true. I think the pandemic definitely helped. But I also truly believe, and again, I say this as a non-fan, I believe that even without the pandemic, this thing still would have sold over 20 million units by now, which in and of itself would have been insane. So, wow, the Animal Crossing train is an unbelievable hype train, and I'm really glad to see it, even though I'm not a fan. Smash Bros. Ultimate, the best Smash Bros. Game, in my opinion, over 22 million units. Breath of the Wild, in my opinion, one of the best video games ever made, over 21 million units. You'll love to see it. Pokemon Sword and Shield, I mean, another franchise I'm not a fan of. I don't play Pokemon, you guys know, but 20 million units. So for all the complaining and whining that Pokemon fans did about these games, they sold really well. So what's going on with you guys that it doesn't seem to line up? Everyone yells and hates a game, but then it sells 20 million units. I mean, I don't even know what to do with that information. Mario Odyssey, a great game, 20 million units, glad to see it. Then you get into some other stuff, you know, not into Mario Party or the Pokemon games. Splatoon 2 at 11 million, you love to see it. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe at 9 million, you love to see it. So all in all, pretty crazy success. So, you know, this really confirms a lot of information we already know, which is that almost any title that gets put on the Nintendo Switch gets that amazing Switch magic, and it just sells insanely well, especially if you are a Nintendo first-party and/or exclusive title. Forget about it, man. The Switch is going to make your game a huge hit. And I'm really glad to see it, because I'm somebody who loved the Wii U and lived through the Wii U years when it was the complete opposite. So it feels really great to see Nintendo kind of living in this incredible rebound period that they're in now. But now let's focus on the real meat of the conversation, which is the system sales, the unit sales, the life to date for the Nintendo Switch, and where it could possibly go. Of course, we've all seen the number, right? How many Switches have been sold since its launch? We're coming up on the 4-year anniversary here in just a couple of weeks. And of course, this data is from a couple of weeks prior, by the way. Well, it's sold 79.87 million units, which is basically 80 million units. And in fact, there is no doubt in my mind that since this total was tallied, it's since crossed 80 million units. So we can confidently say 80 million is the total. By the time it hits its actual 4-year anniversary in just 4 weeks' time from now, I mean, it could be 81, 82, 83 million units, right? So it's averaging about 20 million units per year, maybe even slightly over 20 million units per year. I mean, dang, going into this console, a lot of us, especially us Nintendo fans who lived through the Wii U years and all the prior generations, you know, we thought it was going to be a successful and popular device. And even in the first year, we saw indications that it could be a really successful device. But, I mean, just, man, I never saw it being as big as this. 80 million units in 4 years. It's absolutely insane. And so the question becomes, how big will it be? Is it going to pass the Wii? And is it going to become even as big as some of the other biggest selling units of video game hardware out there? And I think that the answer has to be seen as a yes, there is a chance. At this point, the Switch has also just surpassed the Nintendo 3DS in lifetime sales. It's 75.94 million units, basically 76 million units. The Switch has surpassed that, which is a huge achievement because the 3DS was a mammoth success. And then we look at the goods. Let's look at Nintendo's most successful hardware of all time. We've got the Nintendo Wii at 101 million units, and the Nintendo DS, absolutely astronomical, at 154 million units, you guys. Do not forget just how huge the Nintendo DS was, and that's not even counting the 76 million from the 3DS. So in total, that whole family is well over 200 million units sold. Untouchable, those numbers, man. It's just absolutely crazy. So when we look at the Wii at 101 million units, that's only, you know, 20 million units away from where the Switch is now. So in theory, if everything stays on course, by around this time next year, we'll see totals that shows the Switch has probably surpassed the Nintendo Wii. And even though I love the Wii, I do like the Switch a little bit more, so I'm really glad to see that the Switch can be that popular and successful. Now, what about the Nintendo DS at 154 million units? Well, it should be noted that the PlayStation 2 is the best-selling video game console or piece of hardware of all time at 158 million units, so just a smidge more than the DS. Do we think that the Nintendo Switch can get into this stratosphere of sales before it's all said and done, in the 150 million units sold? You know, around the DS, around the PlayStation 2, possibly bigger than those? That's the real question. So this is where I'm going to try to be a little bit more realistic with myself and my own thoughts and predictions here. Obviously, I'm loving the fact that I can sing the praises of the insane Nintendo Switch success, and that I can admit I was wrong with my initial prediction several years ago when I said it won't cross 100 million units, it won't cross the Nintendo Wii. I'm obviously wrong about that. And yeah, it's going to cross both 100 million units and the Nintendo Wii sometime in the next year to year and a half. and that's crazy. But is it gonna hit these numbers, you guys? Can the Nintendo Switch get as big as the DS and the PlayStation 2? While, of course, anything is possible, and the Switch does continue to prove a lot of doubters wrong, even myself included in the early years there, I kind of feel confident still sticking to no on that. I don't think I'm yet comfortable saying the Nintendo Switch can get as big as 150 million units. Now, the super defenders and the super fans of the Switch are going to be quick to cry foul and say that I'm just a hater and I'm being negative and I can't see the writing on the wall and all of these things. And it's like, hey man, to each their own. You have your own opinions and views and theories, and you have your own sort of perspective here. And that's totally okay. Of course, that could end up being right. But if I'm just being realistic here, one of the things that makes me doubt the Switch's ability to sell that much is just how long the Switch will be Nintendo's main front-facing console. And of course, I said that before when I thought the Switch couldn't cross 100 million units, and obviously I've been proven wrong there. So I'm willing to acknowledge I could get proven wrong again with this prediction, but I do feel, because we're almost 4 years into the life of the console, that it's a little bit safer to predict or even see the potential end of the Switch's life. This thing is not going to go for another 5 years, at least as Nintendo's front-facing console. They're going to replace it sometime soon. Now, a Nintendo Switch Pro could change things. Maybe a Switch Pro, which would be in the Switch family, could bolster sales. And then, yeah, maybe a Switch Pro changes things and it does cross 150 million units. But I'm doubtful on the Switch Pro. I more see the successor console in the next 2 or so years, and I think that when that happens, even if the Switch continues to be made and sold, I think that the crazy momentum and upward trajectory of the Switch could taper off or even start to slow down by the time that that would happen. And if there's any truth to that prediction from mine, and again, it's a prediction, which means it could be wrong, but if there's any truth to what I'm seeing here, I just think that the Switch's sales will start to go on the decline, and even if they're very strong, it's going to decline to the point that it prevents it from getting past 150 million units. And look, you guys, if I end up being right, and let's say the Switch can't quite hit this level of sales, it's not like that's going to be a negative. I think some people, when they love something so much, or they feel so inclined to defend something that they enjoy to such an insane degree, they see anything other than utter perfection and praise as like a negative slant, or like an insult or a diss. And you guys, if the Nintendo Switch sells 125 million units in its entire run, doesn't quite get the DS or PS2 level, but sells 120, 130 million units, is there any reason to see that as anything other than an unmitigated success? Of course it's an unmitigated success. That's completely fine. It doesn't have to become number one to become super, super great, or for it to be your favorite thing. So for those who want to get really defensive about this whole situation, I would just say, maybe lower your pitchforks and realize we're already talking about a system that's a mammoth success right now, let alone in a year from now when it crosses the Nintendo Wii, and then however big it gets beyond that. Whether it sells 120 million units or 180 million units and becomes the #1 of all time, this thing is great. So your love of this console and of this company would already be justified even right now with 80 million units sold. So I think that we could all do well to maybe just remember exactly what it is we're talking about. In fact, if I was to do something completely crazy and that is bound to get myself in trouble, I know it, in like 2 or 3 years I'll be getting myself in trouble, but I'm going to be crazy, I'm going to go nuts, and I'm going to give a final life prediction for the Nintendo Switch, reminding you that the Switch already surprised me and sold more than I thought it was going to be able to do at this time. At the beginning of the Switch's life, I was projecting about 80 million units sold in its entire life, okay? So I already thought 80 million was possible, but I thought this was going to be the end of the console's life. We clearly have another 2 or so years to go, maybe even more, maybe 2 to 4 years to go with the Switch's life. So if I was to now make a final prediction on the Switch's lifetime sales, I would say between 120 and 130 million units, like I was just stating. 130 is probably on the high end, you know? And I'm factoring in my own personal prediction that the next-gen console will come out in the next 2 or so years and be one of the things that starts to slow the system sales down. And so I think if I picture the sales going like this, and then plateauing, and then going like this until the end, I think that by the time we're on the downward path, which will happen at some point, whether it's next year or in 10 years, This will happen, and when it stops down here, I'm thinking about 130 million units. So that's what I'm saying right now in early February of 2021. In a couple of years, we'll know if I'm right or if I'm wrong, and I'll discuss it at that time. I don't mind being wrong about my predictions, but right now, that's what I think. 120 to 130 million units, lifetime sales, making it the third best-selling piece of video game hardware of all time. So now that I've officially dug my own grave with that prediction, and I know people are going to be coming for me in the comments of this video, and you're going to be coming for me in 2 or 3 years when I'm proven completely wrong, that's how I feel, man. I've done it, I've put it out there, and I can't take it back now. That's how I feel. And I feel pretty good saying that the Switch is going to become the third best-selling video game hardware of all time. That's a pretty optimistic outlook, and a great thing to say about a popular and successful device, okay? So I like the Switch. I'm glad to see that it's doing so well. So this is what I think. This is how some of the numbers break down. Very interesting stuff. Congrats to Nintendo and the Switch for the insane steamrolling success. Again, I love the Wii U, but it was a hard year to be a hard generation to be a Nintendo fan. So very happy to see their insane rebound here. They've done a great job. So this is what I think about the numbers. What do you guys think? Do you think I'm crazy? Do you enjoy and agree with what I'm saying here? I'll remind you at the end to consider subscribing to the channel if you like what I'm doing. I post several videos a week, so definitely don't forget to subscribe if you seem to like what you hear. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.